about a little e5 against c4. Going to go for more solid line. g3 is normally met by c6, so you can fight for the center. Seems like this is the correct path so far. And I feel like I'll try this. That looks incorrect. Bishop b4 could be met by that. So we'll just go with a solid move. White looks a little bit off balance. Finish development, and then attack. I'd like to use the open files, C and E file, especially if his king's going to chill here. Looking for this. Seems like a good time to play that move, as I didn't want to retreat fully, as it may be unnecessary. And that would give him something to worry about. Got some coordination for the isolated pawn, which will more than likely be a target later, but still feel pretty decent about the overall chances. Forces that, now doesn't it? And not interested in that trade. Keep tension. That pawn could be a problem, so we're making sure it doesn't become too big of a problem. Needed to be done, otherwise the d pawn would become an issue. And position looks pretty decent. We'll go with this one because it's the opposite color of the bishop for the escape square. b4 would probably be a good move. I need to go a5, see if he can't double the pawns. This way, I have this and get reasonable play. So, liking the position still. And now we wait. Got to pick up the pace. Definitely looking drawish. None of that. Got him. Sometimes equality is your friend. So let's see where I went wrong in this one. I remembered c6 being a move to play against this, and then d4 was the main line. I know there's lines where I was thinking of doing that, definitely. And already the engine likes black by a little bit, which probably says a little something about this line in the English. And unbeknownst to me, I continue to play the main line in the database, but bishop b4 check is where I hesitated. Because I thought king f1, and I was worried about taking and my bishop being loose, but I guess you just do this to assure the king can't castle. Got a little something. I went bishop d7, which doesn't quite spoil anything. And queen e7 is more flexible and keeps an eye on the e2 pawn. Definitely better than bishop b4. I was overly optimistic about chances, but my opponent played very accurately, and I kept tension. Now I'm starting to see 3 attackers, 2 defenders. So if he takes and we do a mass trade, I'll be able to take on e2 at the end. And if he takes on b7, you have the potential of hitting b2. So, relatively straightforward line. And it like d3 best. Interesting. The point is, give a little to get a key square. As the pawn is likely a goner. b4 should definitely be played to stop c5, where I was going to play a5 to give up a pawn in order to play c5 and play against these targets. But since this was played immediately, it should just be equal, as both sides are kind of tethered to the one pawn. So what do you do in this type of situation where it's equal and you can't do anything to press? You make a move which is provocative. Provocative move. All I did was defend and say, okay, would you like to check me? And just go right back. You could. Or potentially the rook could come here at the right moment. That's it. Flexible. Just waiting. And this will show you whether or not your opponent has ambition, because he should just shuffle the king and do nothing if he wants to draw. But as soon as I see e4, it shows a willingness to try to win the game. So I do the same thing. If he takes on d3, I'm going to take on a 2 a check, and we're in a queen and pawn ending. Now rook endings are much easier than endings with the queens, because the chances of dropping some sort of perpetual trick or something like that, it's almost 0. I was expecting f3 and this sort of line, which is still a draw, but definitely worth playing, as we can see, because what we got is also a draw. And the main thing is watch out for tricks. We got the pin on the pawn. He wants to play e6. Little trick. So I get away from that. And now rook a4. Very important. The king gets here. That's going to cause me problems. So I go here. And you go, well, why not? Can he do something like g4? The main point is being able to come here, because takes is met by rook f5. So, end games, and now here he gives himself some significant issues because there's mate threats everywhere. And notice how in the game, if you rewind the video, I had pre-moved h takes g4 because I saw that as only here, because wasting a move leads to mate this way, and pushing the pawn as he did leads to mate that way. So if g4 instead, it is very much a drawn position, but this is much harder to play for white than it is for black. So if he keeps his rook here, for instance, king h6, f6, maybe I can win that pawn, and if I win one, potentially I win the game. So overall, my opponent played quite well from start to finish, but this line in the English with 2g3, I am not a big fan of it, as even as we get here, the engine already begins to favor black. So I typically, myself, no longer play fianchetto systems, c4, e5, when I'm on the white side of these positions. And that'll do it for this video.